Hi, I'm Angel Mason, the Director of Athletics at Berry College, and I welcome you to the One Question Leadership Podcast. Leadership for me is about growing yourself and investing in others. My purpose is to help you be the best version of yourself, and that starts with a person in the mirror. The NCAA leadership development programs that helped me focus my philosophy were my participation in the Dr. Charles Whitcomb Leadership Institute and the Pathway Program. Be great and bring your authentic self to every room. Enjoy this episode.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown, and welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast, where we highlight executive and organizational leadership. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at 1Q Leadership. Our guest today is Donnie Brooks. Donnie is the Director of Athletics at Macalester College. Greetings, Donnie. Thanks for joining us.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Donnie, 16 years in the industry, in the chair total for 6.5-ish years,
Yes.
something like that, at Macalester, starting your 5th year running the program at Macalester, right?
Yep.
Wealth of experience. Glad to have you on. We've talked about it for probably as long as I've been doing the podcast now. And now we have a chance to sit down and talk.
I finally grew up. I'm happy to be here. So I feel like a grown up. You know, when you've been in the chair now for 6.5 years, you go through some things. And I knew at some point there'd be the right story or the right situation that says, I'm actually a leader now. And so I don't know if, we've all been through a pandemic. We've all, had tough calls to make. But I saw you and it was time. It was time.
So what you just said to me was that the right experience makes you feel like I'm a leader now, but you've been in the chair for 6.5 years. So for the first, how long did you not feel like a leader when you were an athletic director doing the job?
You know what's interesting? One of the things that I like to talk to folks who are in the first year of the chair is about imposter syndrome. When you go into a program, you take over a program, you're new to people, particularly in Division III, where you're not bringing in your own people. You're working with the people who are there. People don't always tell you you're doing a good job. They don't tell you all the time that things are going right. You hear all of the problems that are happening within a department, and every day you're fighting to build trust. And so I remember being in my first year really saying, am I doing a good job? And honestly, in my first review, I said to the VP of Student Affairs at the time, he said, grade yourself. And I said, I think I'm a C+. And he looked at me, he was shocked. And he said, Donnie, you've done an outstanding job here. And what he did for me was every time I would email him to set up our one-on-ones, he'd ask me for a list of things that have been accomplished, things that we're working on. And at the end of the year, he presented all of these things that we've accomplished. And he said, you need to know this. Your compliment to complaint ratio for me and others around the college, you're knocking this thing out of the park. So even though I don't think I am, and I will always put the pressure on myself to say, could I be doing something else? Could I be working harder? That affirmation was really important for me. And still to this day, there are times where I'm like, am I getting it done? But we all need that coach. We all need that person who isn't just going to tell us what you're doing a good job, even when you're not, but they're going to give you some tough love, some hard advice, but also that affirmation when things are going well, when you may not believe that they are.
So what's interesting about what that person did for you is, while you may have saw the end when he did the presentation, all the things you accomplished, what he did was create a habit of writing things down that you accomplished, right? So that slowly but surely your brain waves change, so you can start believing in yourself as a leader in terms of what you were doing. Was there a certain point? Well, obviously there was, because you said there was. Is there a certain point, or was there a certain action, situation, or experience where you felt like I'm a leader now? Or was that it, what you described to us, or was there something that happened?
I'll go back to something we've talked about now. I was assistant AD, and I knew I wanted to be an AD. Some of my colleagues from Leadership Institute will say they've heard me say I wanted to be an AD so bad my stomach hurt. And there was a point where I knew I had to become a better leader. And I saw someone who I thought was doing an excellent job, coach, when I was at Dartmouth, just had turned it around. And I said, what have you done? And she said, I got a coach. And when she told me who her coach was, I knew that coach. That coach was actually a coach of a sport. And I'll just shout her out. Chris Herman, the head softball coach at Williams College, Hall of Fame coach, still coaching today. But Chris really pushed me on understanding. The first part of that coaching was understanding and articulating what I value. And it wasn't just coming up with a definition of the things I value. It was knowing those values and explaining to folks what those values look like in action, but also what they don't look like. So in every situation, I like to think that I could now push for clarity and not just say, here are our values, here's the definition of what that is. It's like, no, this is what it looks like and this is what it doesn't look like. And so once I honed that in and was able to put that into action and use it, when any tough decision came, I could make a basic decision. If I didn't have a policy, our core values are this, and this is what it looks like, and this is what it doesn't look like. And I try those, whether they're my personal values or our department values on a regular basis. And that's when you feel like you're leading. When it comes to the toughest decision, compensation. Are people going to work here anymore? They're based on something, they're rooting in something, and you could always say, there's a core value associated with these tough decisions we're going to make.
So my timeline might be messed up here, but how long ago was that?
That was right before I got my first AD job. So that was probably about 7 years ago.
About 7 years ago.
Yeah.
But we talked about you talking to me for 4 years, telling me you weren't ready because you didn't feel like you were leading. Get the timeline right now. I'm going to call you out on it.
Yeah, no, but I will say this, for me, I feel like leadership is a evolution.
It is.
I didn't, we could all lead and not have to sit in the chair. That's when I actually knew I had the ability to lead. And I'll define leadership as, the ability to bring a group of people together and lead them to a chosen goal. And for me, that providing vision, direction, motivation, that whole experience I went through, that made me a leader. But when you're in the chair, there's just some things you got to go through that let you allow you to walk in every room. And I know with other ADs, like there's this shared experience, and I may have a different lens because I'm at a small private liberal arts college, but I mean, you could go in any space and say, I've sat in the chair, I've done the thing, and so that's that's how that timeline kind of plays out.
This exercise, seeing somebody else being coached, deciding to bring on a coach.
Yeah.
Understanding values, being able to articulate them and make sure there's action put to them. That was a significant inflection point in your life, it sounds like. When that happened, did you, we say you don't want to judge people, but life is judging every day, right? Did you immediately evaluate those around you based on this new lens of how you viewed yourself?
That's a great question. And yes, only because I wanted to know who had, I'll just call it the juice, for who had the secret sauce and who didn't. And I wanted to surround myself by those who had the sauce. At that point, at year that when I was going through that process, I had interviewed 6 times for AD jobs.
Okay.
And I had gotten turned down 6 times. And when I wanted something to be different, I had to start doing different things, surround myself with people who I felt were emulating the styles that and making the kind of decisions I wanted to make. And therefore, I just tried to find the folks who had the sauce, and that sauce meant, in some cases, they had gone through some things and were failing and had worked their way back up. And I want to know why. And that's actually the journey I'm going through right now.
Yeah.
I'm actually on a point in my career where Macalester's now, we've moved from the bottom of the conference to the middle in most of our sports. And we want to be championship driven. So there's another sauce out there that we haven't tried yet. And so right now I'm trying to talk to leaders all over the building. I'm making visits to institutions to say, I've seen what you're doing from afar and it's great. And what they're doing may not be the exact thing I need to do, but there's a unique way at Macalester that we operate, and therefore I wanna take that sauce. I want to add some of our ingredients to it, and then hopefully use that to build championship driven
Yeah,
programs.
which is important. When you talk about uh, articulating and putting action to your values, give me an example of that at Macalester when you talk about for the organization, right?
Oh wow. Macalester, I like to say at Macalester, our 22nd, we had 21 varsity sports. Our 22nd varsity sport is activism. My students, during the pandemic, there were some challenging times. During the pandemic, George Floyd was murdered in the Twin Cities in Minneapolis. We're in St. Paul, just literally a couple miles away from where the incident happened. And so, therefore, mm, leadership to me looks like saying, we're going to stop this. We're not going to practice today. And when Dante Wright, another young man, was shot in the Twin Cities, it was like, we're not practicing today. We're talking about this situation. Now, leadership is also saying, I need to talk to my team and help make these decisions. It's not the athletic director doing these things. It's like, if we're all going towards a chosen goal, we need to do this together. And so that buy-in was important. I listen to my students a lot. And so that means I support we actually supported our students, as many of them were going to protest. So I do think Macalester, many of my kids believe they know they're going to change and save the world. I feel like it's different than any other institution. So as a leader, I don't just support you in strength and conditioning, nutrition, sports psychology, things we need to win the game. I got to support you if you say you believe you could change the world. I have to be right there to say, coach, we're going to do something different today that you may not look at as pertaining to winning, but it's important to our community, it's important to our family, and overall it's important to community, which is one of our core values that I lean on.
And the coaches, while they may resist because it's time away from the game, but if this is one of the values of the organization in terms of the department, they actually will come to understand why it's important for you to do the things you're doing.
And that it takes time, and it takes a moment to reflect. But I will say the changes that we made, if you want to ask why Macalester is so much better now than we were prior to the pandemic, community development, compete are the core values. We focused on community. We focused on not just on athletics, but we focused on everybody. We focused on building connections across campus. Development was at the core. We invested in how we're going to help grow our athletes, not only personally, not only athletically, but also how to help them become leaders for life and into the professional world, and then compete. We said, we can't play a game right now. Without, and when we played them, we played in mass, with limited seasons. But that investment in our people, the investment in training, the investment in us saying we're going to grow as a community, now allows us to go in games believing we can win, but also doing it the right way, like knowing that we're doing it with not just the courage to say we want to win the game, but even when we lose the game, right, we're going right back into the community, whether that be our campus community or our external community, and believe we could approach it like we're going to change the world.
Yeah, I'll ask you a couple questions here, and then we'll wrap.
Yeah.
The first one is going to visit other programs and other departments and talking to leaders that have the sauce, right? So you can include it in your recipe for the sauce there at Macalester. Yeah. Is there something you're looking for in your lens, or you just see what they're doing and maybe something to strike a chord and you'll take that back?
There are a couple things I think are important. One, I AD kind of differently. I think I'm a different kind of person. I don't I think everybody, like, I feel like the reason I feel most horrible today, I said this to somebody, I'm wearing my athletic director costume. I got on Kohan's, my sport coat. Like, I don't AD like this.
Yeah.
If you talk to my students, I'm in the mix, I'm in the streets, I'm being with the students.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know what the word on the street is with them. And so I try to approach being an AD not much different than I approached to being a member of the community when I was a student athlete. Like, I want an eclectic group of people around me helping me to move the thing forward. For me, I believe there are unique people all across our conference, all across the country, ADing differently. They're competing differently. Their core values, the way they apply them, look different. And back to that, uniquely Macalester, our college core values are internationalism, multiculturalism, excellence in education, service to society. I can't come and bring, we're going to practice, you know, 3, 4 extra hours a week back to Macalester and say this is going to work. But I want to know how people are applying and using um, unique ways to be successful. And so, therefore, of course, I'm going to look at things like facilities. I'm going to ask the hard questions about budgets and what does recruiting look like for you. But I'm going to also ask for a look behind the curtain to say, what are the things that are unique to your institution that have made it special? And even when I say, that won't work here, I got to bring it back to my people and say, is there an application of this? Is there a way we could tweak this and add our own ingredient to it to make it work for us? So I think when you go on any campus, it's easy to say, well, if we just had this, but that's generally not. Everybody's got their strengths and their weaknesses, but there is something that I believe everybody's doing, and it's generally focused on culture that makes them just different. And a student athlete can feel that when they walk on the campus. They know when you got it and when you don't. And I want any student who comes to Macalester to feel like we have it. But and I could be honest, and I will give those ADs the credit. It may be because I saw it somewhere else and felt like I found it and retrofitted in a way that be great for Mac.
I'll ask this last question here. I mentioned saw you over 4 years,
Yeah.
and you're like, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. Was there something you wanted to say on the One Question Leadership podcast when you felt like you were ready to the people who listen?
I talk a lot of junk. Like, I don't care who you are, how great your institution is, where you ended up in the Learfield Directors Cup, we coming for you. And I wanted to be in a position where it was substantial and real, where people could look at Macalester and say something's different there. So maybe I don't know if I had something to say, but I will say I'm a beneficiary of so many people who invested in both me, who've invested in the programs that I've been a part of. And I've seen, how it is when you see these students like yourself, you graduated, you've gone on to do great things. So there was a certain amount of joy you feel when you reflect on your experience here. And I'll just say, I sat in a meeting this morning um, with over 40 Black Division III athletic directors. I was a little late because I had to go to Springfield College's reception. I walk in the room. I didn't know how many people were going to be there. 4 tables full of Black Division III athletic directors. And I said, damn, we in this thing. And it's not like we don't have to take hard jobs. We're not at the hardest job in D3. Well, maybe we are there, but we're also at places like MIT. Shout out, shout out to that UAA, that shout out to the MIAC, me and Gerald. Like, there are a lot of places that are doing it well. So when I talked to Anthony yesterday, he who at WashU, and he said something that blew my mind, and I'm like, there is excellence in this room. So I think just, I feel this is the best time for me in college athletics, and a lot of that is because a lot of people put in a lot of hard work. So if I had something to say, it's thank you to folks like Dee Dee Merritt. I got Lamar Pottinger sits next to me, but there's a movement happening, and our peers every day on the ticker are coming up. The dreams that a lot of folks had many years ago, whether it be MOA, whether it be the BCA, a lot of those dreams are now coming to fruition, and we're rocking it. So I hope to be on that list of people who they think are rocking it one day.
Right. Yeah, well, you're definitely rocking it. Oh, I'm sure they believe that there, Macalester. Donnie, I really appreciate you joining us here on the One Question Leadership Podcast.
Appreciate you, Todd. Thanks for your time.
Yes, sir. That was Donnie Brooks. He is the Director of Athletics at Macalester College. And of course, I am Ty Brown with One Question. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of the One Question Leadership Podcast is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.